Why is it off? Off by 50 seconds.
They have lasted through time and transcended the context from which they originated. There is a claim you can make for internationalism. But how well do we know the world as something other than an abstraction? For me, the world is too capacious a place to inhabit, and I think a poet ought to inhabit a place. The chief mechanism of a poem has to be vision, and vision has to be connected with people and in sharing in their faith.
Some of our oldest teachings are saying that, what does it mean to be an educated person? It means that you know what your gift is and how to give it on behalf of the land and of the people, just like every single species has its own gift. And if one of those species and the gifts that it carries is missing in biodiversity, the ecosystem is depauperate. The ecosystem is too simple. It doesn't work as well when that gift is missing.
Yeah, here's something you wrote. You talked about goldenrods and asters a minute ago, and you said, when I am in their presence, their beauty asks me for reciprocity, to be the complementary color, to make something beautiful in response.
Yes.
A way of bringing disparate interests together. In a project in which you've shot material yourself, having archival material immediately says multiplicity, or voices at work rather than a voice. I'm more choreographer than creator. But the connective tissue is me. I lived through this. I experienced this. And so by implication, I am this weird product of these disparate elements.
I'm working on this. It's almost 5 a.m. Oh, I'll move it there. I think it's really cool how Akomfrah's hair blend into the goldenrod and asters. That was not planned. I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't just kind of went for it.
And so it made me think of like beauty being in the eye of the beholder. When we see something beautiful, it's not so much about like the symmetry in a face. That's what makes it beautiful. It's something about ourselves that we see that's familiar, that like makes us connect. And I think that's in terms of like, I guess, colonization, like in that context, we're kind of taught to ignore certain parts of our own perception or our epistemology and lived experience when it comes to beauty, and like, okay, well, like, let's look at this thing and like isolate it and not connect it. Like, things are interconnected in our understanding. And I think, like they said in the reading, it's like
we're in many cases looking at the surface, and by the surface I mean the material being alone.
Right.
But in indigenous ways of knowing, we say that we know a thing when we know it not only with our physical senses, with our intellect, but also when we engage our intuitive ways of knowing, of emotional knowledge and spiritual knowledge. And that's really what I mean by listening, by saying that traditional knowledge engages us in listening. And what is the story that that being might share with us if we knew how to listen as well as we know how to see?
Was there kind of a turning point, a day or a moment where you felt compelled to bring these things together in the way you could, these different ways of knowing and seeing and studying the world?
Decolonization is when knowledge is performed, and when the objects in museums are instigated to be part of performances rather than treated as relics or residues of time, spaces, or epistemologies past. Decolonization as method is choosing embodied practices as mediums and formats of discourse and knowledge, delinking from the conventional referencing phenomena, and proposing a more phenomenological approach of dealing with histories, memories, cultures, sciences, religions, and knowledges at large.
I wanted to do everything that I could to bring those ways of knowing back into harmony.
You said at one point that you had gotten to the point where you're talking about the names of plants, right? I was teaching the names and ignoring the songs. So what do you mean by that?
One of the difficulties of moving in the scientific world is that when we name something, often with a scientific name, right? This name becomes almost an end to inquiry. We sort of say, well, we know it now. We're able to systematize it and put a Latin binomial on it. So it's ours. We know what we need to know. But that is only looking, of course, at the morphology of the organism, at the way that it looks. It ignores all of its relationships. It is such a mechanical, kind of wooden representation of what a plant really is, and we reduce them tremendously if we just think about them as physical elements of the ecosystem.
I called it artwork for present future, thinking about how we're always engaged in the future, even in the present, right? So I kind of want you to build a project around whatever the ideas you find yourself kind of returning to. I hope that you will follow your own interest and curiosity.
The freedom realized through flight and refusal is the freedom to imagine and create an elsewhere in the here, a present future beyond the imaginative and territorial bounds of colonialism. It is a performance of other worlds, an embodied practice of flight.